The game that took the world by storm in late 2020 and has changed the gaming scene ever since. Though the game has plenty of glaring flaws, Genshin Impact has truly accomplished amazing things. By the time this video comes out, Genshin will be nearing its 4-year anniversary, and along with it, 4 years worth of character designs. Just like my previous character design videos, this is all my opinion, and you are fully welcome to agree or disagree with me. I'll be categorizing the characters by region, and then by alphabetical order. Every character released from 1.0 through 4.8 will be covered in this video. If you like it, let me know, and I'll do a follow-up with Natlan in the future, hopefully once the main Archon quest is complete. Oh, but I'll be covering any alternate skins characters may have too. Without further ado, let's get into the region where everything started, and one that many call home. Albedo Alfredo, our favorite alchemist whose hairs got sadly flattened in his 3D model. When looking at his design, there's honestly a lot going on, and it was hard for my eyes to pick a point to focus on at first. The short sleeve jacket, the thigh-high boots, all the detailed emblems scattered throughout his design. What I could pick up on was that he has a main palette of white, black, and gold with some blue splashed in his torso and some parts of his boots. I do think having a blue shirt was the right choice, but I would have liked to see some of that color in his long jacket as well. I like how he's bundled up from head to toe since he spends a good chunk of his time in the cold of Dragonspine, working on his research. It makes sense. His hair looks great in the official artworks, but unfortunately his 3D model could really use a touch-up to make it fluffier, along with a certain grumpy-haired wine owner, you know. Overall, I think his design is pretty solid. At first, it's hard to discern what to focus on, but after a minute, I can appreciate all the elements to his design. The very first character we meet on our journey, Amber. She has 2 designs, which I may as well tackle here. Shortly after skins were introduced, 4 characters got reworked for the China servers, and Amber was one of them. Everyone on Global can still access the original designs, but the Chinese servers and all cutscenes now default to the reworked designs. Thankfully, Amber was the one given the least amount of changes from the 4. I also want to take a moment to say, while I may prefer a reworked design, I don't like the idea of censorship, which is why these reworks likely happened in the first place. As long as an artist isn't harming anyone, they should be able to freely express themselves without having to worry about being silenced. Okay, on to Amber's original design. I love that her big red ribbon is likely a reference to her Baron Bunny. Her main colors being red, white, and brown are nice, and they are all evenly distributed throughout. It makes me happy to see her quill on her hip to elude her weapon type, and goggles around her neck for her profession as an outrider. The only thing that bugs me is the thigh-high boots. I'm not sure if an outrider would enjoy running around in those things. Now onto the reworked design. Again, not much changed here. In fact, the time when the reworks were announced, most were confused why Amber was even a part of this crew. The biggest change is that her midsection now has more white, and the brown on the sides fade into red. Also, on her 3D model, she used to have a crease where her booty shorts were, but now she doesn't. Oh, and it looks like she has white gloves too. When it comes to both designs, I don't mind either of them. I think they both work well for Amber, and they both portray that she's a joyous bow user. Our singer was one of the first characters to ever get a skin in the game back in 1.6. I actually think her original outfit is very strong design-wise though. One look at her and I instantly know she's part of a church. Plus, I love how they chose to layer the bottom of her dress. The design does have a lot of white, but the darker blues and gold accents do just enough to break it up. Just like Amber, I'm glad to see a book strapped around her waist to allude to her weapon choice. I know that some people don't like Barbara's design and have critiqued her for being too boring, but I think this design portrays what it needs to accurately, and it doesn't need a bunch of details for the sake of detail. Moving on to her summer skin, this one also plays on its simplicity, and while I don't like this as much as her original outfit, it's still pretty cute. I may be biased towards the big rubber ducky purse. Despite being a new outfit, it still uses her main colors of white and blue, just this time we have a brighter yellow. I also appreciate that the designer team didn't just smack a bikini on her and call it a day. There's some honest thought put into the summer outfit, and it's nice to see. Oh, Bennett, he just tries his best. He's another design that I can take a quick look at and take a guess that he's some type of explorer. The goggles and the fanny pack give that away to me the most. He's got a few colors going on here and there with dark blue, various shades of brown, and then some white and reds, yet for the most part, it just works. I'm honestly surprised he's wearing anything that matches with how often he gets himself into trouble thanks to his bad luck. Oh hey, it's the other model that also needs a hair fluff. D-Luke is a design I liked from the very beginning. There's a lot of black in his design, but the white shirt and gold accents did a good job of breaking it up. The gold accents on his shoes especially saved this design from becoming a black blur. One small detail to note is that I just really like that his jacket has golden tassels. It's an added detail that gives him just a little bit of extra oomph. I do wish we had the option to wear his ponytail up or down in the game and not have it locked behind his skin, because his default design would look good with it styled either way. Speaking of, let's talk about the only 5-star rated skin in the whole game. Not to get confused with the 5-star having a skin. No, skins in the game are also ranked as well by 4 and 5 stars, and D-Luke is the only one as of this recording that has a fancy 5-star skin. These skins get special sound effects, visuals, and voice lines. It's cool and all, don't get me wrong, but I can't help but love the original design more. The red coat instead of a black coat is nice, but it looks really thin. If the coat was burnt on the edges or something, I think it would make a lot more sense. The skin barely uses white to help break up the outfit, so unfortunately the middle does get a bit muddy. Thankfully we do have some cool grays for the torso and some in the shoes, but it's still not enough for me. Still a really cool outfit though. Pink-haired character that I'm neutral about. I've never been a fan of the updo hairstyle, but I do like that she's wearing shorts and a hat that matches. I also like that her vision is on her drink mixer, as that's what both her kit and lore is based around. One of the things I noticed with quite a few of the Mondstadt cast is their quote-unquote weapons are displayed on them, or they have their weapon carriers on their design, like belts and such. It's a nice touch. The rest of her outfit is alright, and it does work for our calico cat Diona. This isn't a design that I dislike, but it's not one that I particularly love either. Eula is such a pretty character, and the fact that they use cool tones for the entirety of her design is so nice. One of the things that made me love this character were her dance-like animations and how her cape twirled with her when she moved. I do feel like her design is a bit top-heavy, with a lot of the white colors towards the top. If some splashes of white could be distributed towards the bottom of her shoes, that would be really nice to help even it out. I also don't know if the belts around her thighs were necessary, and I'm really sad that Physical doesn't get much love in the game, and that she ends up sitting on my bench most of the time. I have a lot of really good things to say about Fischl. Her dark purple outfit contrasts her blonde hair nicely, and thankfully there's enough varying shades of purple to break up her outfit. I like that while she has an eye patch, we know the reason why. It's not just slapped on there for the sake of having it. There's also these little black wing tattoos on her back. Like, how cool is that? As I was taking a closer look at her design for this video, I actually noticed that she has bat wings on her shoes too. I never noticed that before, but it's really cool. Totally not biased because I have that too. Moving on to her summer skin design from 2.8, this one is good in a different way. She keeps her main purple color, but we're getting a white color introduced. At first, I thought this was odd, but after playing through her Summer Castle story, the pieces begin to fall into place. The skin is a mirror image of herself, the version of herself that constantly criticizes her harshly. Of course, some parts will reflect the same and others differently. The red eye, the crown on the head, it's just all so well done. I actually haven't removed the skin from Fischl since I got it all those years ago. There's one last thing I want to note about Fischl, and it's the music associated with her character. It's one of my personal favorites, and the summer OST for her island solidified that for me. And fun fact, she's one of my biggest musical inspirations for my VTuber. That harpsichord is just too good. Jean is the only character on this list with 3 different versions. We have her main, her summer skin, and her rework to go over. Let's start with her main outfit. She is one of the very few women wearing pants. I do think that all the white colors does cause her outfit to get a little lost. She uses the dark blues and gold accents that I think could have been utilized in her boots as well to help break her up. I see the boots have gold accents, so I think some dark blues in her boots could have really helped here for color balance. Otherwise, I think her original design is pretty solid. I wasn't a fan of her chest window, but that actually leads me to her rework. The rework keeps a lot of Jean's design the same, except most noticeably, her chest window is replaced with a black button-up sleeveless shirt. You heard me. I took a closer look and it's not a short sleeve shirt that connects to her sleeves. No, those sleeves are still detachable ones. Well, I think the chest cover-up makes her design a bit better. I really hate how the black undershirt doesn't connect with the rest of her outfit. Aside from that, we also got some more details on the short top coat, which aren't bad. I don't mind those changes, but again, I'm not a fan that these changes were a result of censorship. Lastly, we have Jean's summer skin that was introduced to us in 1.6 along her sisters. I remember many people were excited for her to get a skin, but were also upset at how boring it was. I honestly don't mind the skin for Jean, it's cute, but that's also all I really have to say about it. I would have loved to see a rubber ducky on her design to have it match with Barbara's, or I would have liked to see a dandelion pattern on it, somewhere to symbolize her being the dandelion knight. I think they could have been a lot more creative with making this design more tailored to Jean specifically, because as it is, this outfit could be slapped onto anybody. Everyone's favorite cavalry captain that has no actual cavalry to watch over in the game. Poor guy. As much as I enjoy Kaya as a character and enjoy seeing him whenever he's on screen, unfortunately there's nothing about his design that tells me he's a captain. The middle of his design is especially chaotic, and I found my eyes struggling on what to focus on first. I do like his cool color palette though. The fluffy cape over his shoulder is nice as well. I also think the gold accents help break up his design shapes. It's just the middle of the torso that gets lost for me. And of course, his eye patch is cool, and I like how, just like Fischl, we have a reason as to why he wears an eye patch and it's not just slapped on there for looks. But let's jump over to his summer design from 3.8. I like his summer design, but I feel it falls into the same issues as his main outfit does. His torso gets a little lost with the black against the dark blue. There's gold on the design, and I think if there was a stronger gold trim against the inner part where the black meets the dark blue, that could have helped separate the shapes better. While the color choices are good, it does feel split half and half. Without some white colors on the top of the design, it feels unbalanced. However, I love that the skin directly reflects his original one. They kept his cape over his shoulder and they stylized it for the skin. Kaya is a character I really enjoy, and I hope they do his Lord justice in future patches. Liyue's design is so good. We can immediately see her main colors of red, white, and brown, and they are distributed evenly throughout the design. Having her wear a backpack to show where she stores her bombs and vision is really nice. By making the backpack brown, it matches her gloves and shoes to help with color balance. The red outfit and hat is super cute, and the white accent colors along with her white hair help break up the shapes. I also like that despite having lucky clover symbols, that her main color is red. Typically when we see clover symbols like this, it's surrounded by green shades, so it's really nice to see this mix up. Moving on to her 3.8 summer skin, it's also pretty cute. They kept the main colors of red and white, but also mixed it in with some black. Instead of the backpack, she has a cute little bag with Dodoko sticking out of it. The design itself works well and still fits with Klee's overall theme. I do want to mention one thing regarding her animations, which makes me feel bad for those who paid for her skin. Klee's backpack animations have her pulling on 2 straps. For this skin, her pouch only has 1 strap, but the animation is the exact same from the original, so she's grasping at a strap that's not there. It's lazy, and for a game that typically does a good job at paying attention to detail, I'm surprised that this got overlooked. Right away, we can see the purple and white colors, and they work well for Lisa. Much like a lot of the other Mondstadt characters, her design has gold accents to help break up the shapes. I especially like the rose pattern at the bottom of her fabric. While she has a lot of different layers going on, it's done so in a way that's not too chaotic thanks to the different colors that are used. Seeing how much Lisa likes roses, I like that this is a symbol that's repeated throughout the design. We have a golden rose on her hip, some lavender roses on her hat and hair tie, and of course the previously mentioned golden rose pattern. While it's not my favorite design, I can appreciate what the team was trying to go for here. Moving on to her Sumeru Academia skin, I like this design for the most part. The dark green is a nice color that we don't see a ton of from the cast, and the white is nice. The one part that really bugs me about this design is the fabric folds around her hips. It just does not look good to me. Otherwise, I think the skin is solid. I like how they kept her lavender rose hair ties and some motifs of her original design, like the fabric hanging down the middle. Just in case, mainly due to the timeline for Mondstadt characters, as he's the only new addition after Eula in 1.4. Yeah, as of this video, the last new Mondstadt character we got was in 3.5, which was March of 2023. I do not think this new addition with Mika disappointed. One look at his character and I can tell he's an adventurer of some sort, and I love the large feather he has on his pouch. His color scheme of dark blue, brown, and white is done well, and by making that pouch brown, it helps make the boots balanced and not stick out in a bad way. We can also see his book, which is one of the few weapons that he uses in combat. One of the worries of adding a new character to old regions much later in time is that they may not fit in as well, but Mika doesn't have that issue for me. In fact, I wish we had more Mondstadt characters, and I hope we get more in future patches. Anyone still waiting for Varka? Anyone? Mona is another character that went through a rework, and she has one of the more noticeable changes. We'll start with her original, which many dubbed her swimsuit look. I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of this design, but I do love how unique it is. The idea of having that swimsuit shape, but with the dark leggings, is interesting. The blues and golds work well together, and while I understand that the dark red was likely meant to be the accent color to provide contrast, I don't think that shade of red was the best choice. I do like the theme her design portrays with the astrological elements, with varying stars, but it's not my favorite design. If we take a look at her rework instead, I'm not sure how I feel about this one either. They got rid of her swimsuit and instead replaced it with booty shorts. Her leggings were replaced with thigh-high shoes. I do think that they fixed the dark red color contrast though by adding that light pink color to fade into it, which was a good choice. But I do think Mona's design loses its uniqueness with this rework. While the swimsuit one was impractical, it was interesting. This one is a style we've seen with other characters in the cast. I'd like to see Mona get a proper skin in the future because I'm not a huge fan of either of her outfits. I remember thinking Noelle's design was bland when I first began playing the game, but over the years I really came around to appreciate her design. Her color palette is nice with black, white, and red, and the fact that she loves roses and has them adorned throughout her design is so good. I like that the ribbons are red to complement the red roses that she has in her hair. I like that she's wearing armor as she hopes to one day join the Knights of Favonius, and knights typically wear armor. Speaking of, why isn't she one of them already? The designers love to use gold accents on their designs, but with Noelle it's not overwhelming. It's just enough to break up the shapes and it allows the other colors on the design to shine. Also, the little shield ornament in her hair is such a nice detail. Yeah, I've really come to like this design, and I hope we get to see her become an official knight soon. Razor's design is interesting, because at a glance I can tell that he has some sort of connection with the wild. That big tooth necklace and wild hair are the two big indicators of this for me. As someone who was raised in the wild though, I'm curious as to why his clothes aren't at least a little torn to show this. Maybe if they exchanged all the weird hanging belts for some wear and tear on his main coat, that would be interesting. I'm also not sure about the bright orange gloves. I think making those the same green as his pants or brown of his coat would have been better for balance. Overall, I don't dislike his design. I feel pretty neutral about it. The only part that makes me raise an eyebrow are all those hanging belts. Alright, here we go. Rosaria is the last of the 4 characters that had a rework, and hers was the most dramatic change. We'll start with her original design. As much as I don't care for the sexy church aesthetic, I have to admit her design does portray that extremely well. One glance was all I need to immediately understand what she was meant to portray. I do like the color palette choice of dark purple, pinks, white, and reds. She does have quite a bit of belts, and I'm not sure if all of them are practical. Seeing as she uses a knife, I can understand the one on her thigh, but I'm not so sure about the one on her wrist. I do really like the headdress, and I think it's a nice addition to wrap this design up. Now for her rework. I remember when her rework was released, many praised it for its looks, but there was also a crowd that didn't like it because of her lore. Rosaria is a member of the church, but her original design states that she modified her previous outfit to fit her better. This rework's description is that this was an outfit given to her by the church, and now it's her default. Players don't like it because it went against Rosaria's core character. From a lore perspective, I can see that. From a design perspective though, I already liked her headdress, but the change from white to black was really nice. Unfortunately, that's where my praises for this rework ends. There's so much black in the middle of her design, and without enough varying shades or accent colors to break up the shapes, it's very muddy. The white fabric on her chest looks extremely awkward with where they cut it, and without more white color distributed throughout the design, it just doesn't work. I'm sorry, but I'm not a fan. Sucrose is super cute, and her design is really well done. The blue, white, and green palette is striking, and her outfit is nicely done. I also like how her ears are positioned on both sides rather than being straight up in the air. Unfortunately, I wouldn't know that she was into alchemy or sweet flowers just by looking at her. I think one way to elevate this design from good to great would be to add maybe a sweet flower pendant on her hat or something. I actually didn't notice that she had test tubes on her belt, which is perfect, but they're easy to miss without her idle animation. That does help us clue in on her profession, which is good. I'd be happy to see her get a skin someday, but at the same time, her original design is pretty awesome. Last, but certainly not least, we have the definitely just a bard, Venti. Being the Archon of the Land of Freedom means that he has a pretty big role to play. And I swear, if he doesn't get his second story quest soon, I will throw hands. Seriously, why does my boy keep getting disrespected like this? The first notable thing about his design is his unique hairstyle. I've never seen the double short braids framing the face like this before, and the fact that they have the ombre black to teal is really nice. Of course, for Genshin, this clues us in to him being an Archon, or at least a character of great importance and position. His main colors of green, white, and brown work, and I love the fact that he has a windmill aster pendant hanging off of his belt, and of course his favorite flower pinned to his hat. He definitely doesn't look like a god at all, and that perfectly embodies who he wants to be. He's just a bard who looks after the people in his own way. Before I even got into Genshin Impact, I saw fanart of Venti everywhere on my timeline, and there's a good reason for that. A compelling character with a good written backstory and a nice design. I really hope he gets his second story quest, and I cannot wait to see where they take Venti's character in the future. So I'm writing the conclusions for each region after I've already gone through every single character. Mondstadt has an interesting design aspect that's unique to them and their cast, and that's that their weapons being attached to some of their characters. This is something that's lost on the rest of the designs going forward aside from a few, and I think that's really unfortunate. Having Amber's quill on her hip or Diana's shaker is a nice touch that goes to show the blend between the character's kit and what they do in the world. Mondstadt is also the region with simpler designs. Most details on these characters have thought behind them, and as time goes on, you'll see that the details get crazier and crazier. In a way, Mondstadt truly is the welcoming starter region, and it reflects in its character designs. Ah yes, the man that was put in Hoyoverse jail for years thanks to being Dendro. Then when he was released, not many pulled for him. A tragedy indeed. One thing I need to get off my chest about Baizhu is I hate that they made his coat sleeves 2D. Why? Just why? I think the best way to describe my opinion of Baizhu's design is I like the upper half, but I'm not a fan of the lower half. Having a snake around the neck is really cool, especially once you play his quest and learn the lore behind it. I think the glasses and long braids are fun. The coat itself is nice too, I just hate how they made it 2D in some parts. But why those purple pants? He feels mismatched towards the center with all the various fabrics hanging off of him as well, and nothing about his design clues me into him being a professional doctor. It makes me sad to say such negative things about his design because I actually really like Baiju's character. Beidou is cool. I like her red, gold, and brown color scheme. I also like that her hair doesn't split directly in the middle. I know they like to split the hair into two so you can see more of the intricate designs on the back while you play, but seeing characters without that is also nice. I really like her golden hairpiece too. I do wish we knew why she wears an eye patch. If we did learn about it and I forgot, please let me know in the comments. The only odd part of her design is the white fluff at the top. I think if they added some white fluff on other parts of her outfit, it would help tie it all together, or if they just removed that white fluff part altogether. I did not get this guy until AR56, but I really like his design. The usage of cool colored tones, dark blue, white, and gold, and the outfit is layered in a way that not only breaks it up, but makes sense for his character. I'm still so sad that he hasn't had an official appearance in the game. We've only met Chongyun during special events or during his hangout quest. He was never there during any main story quest, and the real kicker is that they had an opportunity to introduce him to one with Shenhe, but they didn't. As someone who's liked Chongyun's character for a really long time, it just makes me so sad that he still doesn't have a proper place in the main story. If the player is never around for Lantern Rite or never does hangouts, then you'll never have met Chongyun, and I think that's a real shame. He has a great design and personality. Gaming was introduced to us with the inclusion of Chen Yuvale much later into the game's lifespan as a lion dancer. When he has his lion head out, he becomes a super unique design, and I love that his outfit glows either red or blue. However, when Gaming, I may have forgotten about him originally when I made this list. I'm so sorry, Gaming fans. Black and red is a cool color combo, and I like his hood. I also like that the little lion emblem he has on his waist where his vision is tied. I think it's a solid design, but without the lion head, I also think it can be a little forgettable. Oh no. Okay. Ganyu lovers, please have mercy on me. I do not like Ganyu's design. The bodysuit, or sock as many call it, just doesn't do it for me. I do think her sleeves are pretty, and I do like her hair color and horns, but I hate how her spiral just exists. There's no hair tie? How is it staying in perfect shape like that? I did like the back of her design at first until my brain noticed that it was just slightly asymmetrical. Why? Did she really need 3 of those blue spikes on one side and only 1 on the other? Ever since I picked up on it, it's bothered me. In a nutshell, I don't hate her theme, but rather how it was executed, and I can understand why people like it, it's just not for me. Her skin that was introduced in Lantern Rite, though, is interesting. They ditched the body sock and put up her hair. Suddenly, the 2 most irritating parts of her original design for me personally are gone. The dark black and very light blue is a pretty color combo, but it feels like the golden leg ornaments are just slapped on there for the sake of it. I do much prefer this Lantern Rite skin over her original design. I'm going to surprise no one with this, but I love Hu Tao's design. In fact, she was my first Genshin cosplay. While her color palette is mostly brown and runs the risk of getting lost, Hu Tao has enough gold and red accents to balance everything out. To me, her hat is the perfect aspect of her design to wrap everything up and tell us that she does have some spooky business. I also appreciate the fact that she's not really wearing high heels. Her shoes have a bit of a platform, but it's something you'd expect. I love how her hair is a brown that fades into the subtle red color, and the flower design in her eyes. It's such a shame that Hu Tao doesn't play a bigger role in the story. Raise your hand if you thought she had cat ears. Her main outfit is cute with the white and purple combo. The black tights do feel a little out of place, but it's not too bad. I do like how her hair curls at the bottom and fades into a slightly lighter purple. It's nice. The flower charm she has on her front is nice, added detail, and doesn't feel too out of place as well. I like how Keqing's outfit has clear layers to it. You have the white dress with the lavender ruffles on top, and then the darker purple layer as the final one. Now, I remember many of us were excited for Keqing's skin, as she was the second batch to ever receive skins in the game. Her black and blue dress is gorgeous, I must say. They kept her tights pretty much the same, which is fine, tidied up the hair, which while a small tweak makes it look so much nicer. The one dark blue section reminds me of a butterfly wing, and I like how she has ribbons in her hair now. While I do think the dress could have benefited with some more dark blue elements in it, it's quite nice. Okay, I love the colors that they use for Ningguang, but I don't love her outfit style. Except that tattoo she has is pretty cool, I'll give her that. I think this is a similar case to Baizhu for me, where I like the top half of Ningguang's design a lot, but the bottom half I'm meh about. I'm not a huge fan of the lopsided front of the dress. Some elements of her design that I do like is the hair bow, the hair ornament, and the golden fingernails. Now for her skin, we move away from the wealthy golden colors to dark blue ones. The front part of her dress isn't as lopsided, which I appreciate, and though we lose the hair bow on top of her head, it's moved towards the back with a different shape. It also looks like they kept her golden hand ornaments, which I appreciate. While I do think this is an alright outfit, I also believe that her original outfit suits Ningguang as a character better. The golden color palette suits her so well for a character associated with wealth, even if it's not my personal favorite. A character that held the crown for the worst 5-star in the game for such a long time, and my first ever 5-star. See, I got her right on April Fool's Day. People may dislike Chi-Chi for a variety of reasons, but for me, her character design is not one of those reasons. It's really solid, and you can tell that she has some sort of mysterious vibe with the talisman and the bandages. I know I didn't know about zombies besides the yummy hungry for brains ones, so after learning about Chi-Chi's story, the talismans on her forehead, back, and leg are perfect for her. The cool color tones of purple and blue and white work well together, and the accent color of pink helps tie everything up without sticking out in a bad way. Be proud, Chi-Chi, and my book of silly opinions, you've got a good design. I'll be honest, I really hated Shenhe's design when she first came out. Remember when I said I wasn't a fan of the bodysuit sock? Yeah, imagine my awe when I saw her release with those hip windows and Ganyu's long-lost other outfit, Taff. The jokes were pretty funny, I'll admit, but I wasn't digging this design. I did like how they handled the sleeves fading from white to blue, which did remind me of Cloud Retainer. I thought that after playing her story quest that maybe I would grow to appreciate her design more, but I'm afraid the opposite happened for me. A character that's followed by calamity and needs to be bound by red rope to prevent said calamity barely has any red rope in her design. She has a crisscross on her back and some rope in her hair tie, and if this was a small point in her story, I would shrugged it off, but they emphasized this in her trailer. Why doesn't she have more red rope? I swear Ganyu has more on her design. I know some may say she has enough of it around her shoulders and back, but I feel like more in her design would have been really cool to help emphasize this point. Now, her skin came out at the same time as Ganyu's, and it's clear that they were intended to match. The bodysuit is also ditched for Shenhe and replaced with the black dress with soft blue colors. And hey, while little it may be, I'm glad they didn't forget about the red rope, as it's still present in her skin, just only on her back. I do think the hairstyle is a bit overcomplicated, which takes away from the pretty hairstyle it was meant to be and instead makes it messy. Honestly, I think Shenhe has a solid design, I just wished it tapped into her lore more. The white hair fading into black was such a nice touch, so I know they were already trying to allude to her past. Remember when we found out she was carrying around a literal god? Yeah. Don't you love it when Genshin inserts lore-heavy things in limited events? Xiangling is a fiery, passionate cook, and her design reflects that with her warm color palette. I like how her hair is braided into little ears at the top, maybe it's to match Guoba. The brown, orange, and yellow are evenly distributed, making the design feel complete and balanced. I also love the touch of her little Guoba hanging by her hip. It goes to show how much she loves her companion. The band-aid is a nice touch as well, insinuating that when she's out gathering ingredients for her restaurant that she might be a bit clumsy. Overall, I think her design screams her personality out loud. When Cloud Retainer was announced to become playable, many were not only excited, but it gave us a flicker of hope that maybe some of the other Adepti would also become playable one day. As I'm writing this, we still don't know if that will come to fruition, but we do have Xian Yun. Her colors are well balanced by having most of the black on her main core and the very light teals and greens in the back to contrast it. I like her hair is a split of dark green and light green as well. She has a very pretty design, but without prior knowledge, I would not know that this is Cloud Retainer, which might have been the goal of this design, as the whole purpose of their mortal forms is to not be perceived as the Adepti. Xiao is interesting. As the last remaining Yaksha, he has a lot of really good lore, and I'm glad we got to explore quite a bit of it over the years. Design-wise, he's got his cool mask that we see on him at all times, which is really cool. He has a tattoo down his one arm and the little diamond in the middle of his forehead to suggest that he might have had a horn there at some point. I also like that he has some armor on his one shoulder. The rest of his outfit is where it gets a little weird for me. They stuck with this white and light green palette for the top half and then delved into purple and darker blacks for the second half. I think both of the elements are good, they just needed to mesh into each other somehow. Add some of those purple ropes near his shoulder, or add some of those light green elements into his shoes instead of using gold all the time. I think that would help connect the two pieces and make Xiao feel more united as a design. Either way, he's such a good character and it hurts to see him mischaracterized by so many people. The character that may be forever known for his shorts and never escape. Seriously though, Xingqiu's design is really good. We have the darker blue that fades into a lighter one. The white color is used for the ruffles of the sleeves and his shoes. The gold in this design makes sense because of his wealthy status and it helps add a nice trim on his outfit in an elegant way. I also like how the designers chose to make the inner part of his outfit a yellow gold to contrast the large amount of blues, and he has that darker blue at the end of his shoes to tie into the main part of his outfit. It's just really well thought out, and despite the haircut, I appreciate it. For his skin, I'm not sure how I feel. Unlike the other skins, we've gotten some lore reason for it, but his just kinda appeared. Let me know if I missed why he got this outfit. It's pretty similar to his original in terms of color palette, except the colors are just in different places. He has white shorts and the varying blue hues cover the rest of his outfit. Unfortunately, those shorts now stick out like a sore thumb without white accents anywhere else in the design except a little on his back. It's still a really nice outfit, don't get me wrong, but when you're up against such a strong original design, it's tough to compete. Our rock and roll lover Xinyan. Even without her guitar, I can get a pretty good idea as to the fact that she may love some rock and roll. I think it's the fun hairstyle and the spikes, and the drum on her back does kind of give away that she's into music. I don't think Xinyan's design gets enough credit for just how good it is. The colors of white, red, and brown work so well together here, and the asymmetrical parts look intentional and not disruptive. I also love the fact that while she has a favorite style of music, she can perform many different styles of music too. That moment in the 2.8 summer event where she takes her hair down and plays such a soft melody was so interesting, and it made me appreciate her character so much more. Yeah, she could play what most people like or want to hear, but she stays true to herself. She dresses the way she likes to dress and plays the music she loves the most. And for me, her design reflects that. Pink character spotted! Look, I really like her design, but if you walked up to me and told me this character was a lawyer, I probably would laugh at you. What character would strut into court wearing this? While her design may not exactly show her profession, there are other good elements to it. The red, black, and white colors work really well here, and I think she has a book or a scroll around her waist. I'm not sure if Yanfei needed to show this much skin, but the way her outfit is broken up works. I do think with all the skin showing, the little white scarf around her neck does come off a little odd. Another character that was locked away in the basement for years. One day I will get a plush of that silly little bunny, I swear it. Immediately, my eyes are drawn to the big bells on her head. If I had bells on my head, I would be having my migraines non-stop. The green, white, brown, and yellow work nicely for Yao Yao, and I like that the yellow is only subtly present in her design. I also enjoy the fact that she has a basket on her back for her companion. It's a cute way to incorporate the little one into her design. I don't really have much else to add on here. She's cute, and her design works. Okay. This is another one that I'm iffy on. Don't get me wrong, I do like Yelan a lot. I've got her signature weapon and she's triple crowned on my account. However, what the heck is going on here? I remember the memes when she first came out and where people were saying how she stole Xingqiu's haircut, Kaya's jacket, Eula's shoes, and Ganyu's front dress, and honestly, I think there's some truth to that meme still. Yelan does feel like a combination of many different characters into one. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you don't think of a way to blend all these elements together nicely, it can be awkward. I think they got the colors right, as the white and varying blue tones work together, but the shapes and the transitions between one part to the next don't mesh well and clash in some areas. How is her jacket staying on her? Magic? Invisible wire? Where does her bodysuit start and end? Where do her shoes begin? Why does one side have a zipper showing some skin? Heck, I didn't even notice the braid in her hair. There's so much going on in this design. Again, the elements we're at least inspired by for Yelan aren't bad. I just feel like they needed to be blended together in a more cohesive way than they are. The amount of love the designers put into this character is insurmountable, and you can tell that in her design. This 20-minute video goes into far more depth than I ever could, and you can hear it directly from HoYoverse themselves. For some quick examples from that video, they want to use red and blue as it's often seen in Chinese opera, which we can see in some of Yunjin's ropes and little puffballs. They try to incorporate the opera-like elements into her details and allow the overall outfit to be more suited for everyday wear and combat. And apparently Yunjin's model was done in 2018? What? Once you're done with this video, I'd recommend checking out that one, especially if you love Yunjin or want to learn more about just how much thought goes into designing a character. I like Yunjin's character personally, but nothing I can say here can trump that video. It's great. Once again, the Archon is last but not least. Osmanthus wine. How many times have you heard that line? Design-wise, Zhongli relies heavily on brown, but thankfully there's enough different shades and golds to help break it up. Also, the layering of the suit coat helps provide an interesting shape. I also love that we didn't get thigh-high boots with Zhongli. He's wearing long pants with shoes, and it's a good change of pace. Of course, since he's an Archon, we have the darker brown fading into a lighter one, which I thought was an interesting choice. I thought the Archon of Geo would for sure have the golden ombre, but I love that the way that they went with the lighter brown instead. Having his hair glow that golden color when using his skills is a way to have both the lighter brown and gold utilized. Usually in designs, I prefer even color distribution. If you have a color that's heavily present near the head but don't balance it out near the feet, it usually makes the design feel awkward. I don't know how Zhongli does it, but his steel shoulders don't feel weird or out of place despite having no balance in other parts of his design. Zhongli was my first limited 5-star I got my hands on, and I'm very happy he's been a part of my account since, well, the beginning, really. His design is amazing, and now that we know more lore about the Yakshas, it's cool to know that the previous general, Minogius, or the Geo Yaksha, was the one that made his current outfit. Just a little fun fact to break your heart a little. I've come to notice that the Liyue designs, from a personal opinion, are my least favorite from the Genshin cast, despite having one of my favorite designs with Hu Tao. Even so, I can tell the developers put a lot of love into Liyue and its characters, particularly with Yunjin. I'd love to see more in-depth design videos from the official HoYoverse account explaining their design process and why they made the choices they do. It's so interesting, and there's a lot we can learn from it. There is a lot to love about Ayaka's design. The black and gold armor, the dark blue dress with the golden patterns, the bow on her back, and her white hair that fades into a slightly lighter blue. I also like the usage of pink in her robes, as this is an accent color that is evenly distributed in her design. While many may remember her for her wet sock dance, and to an extent, me too, because why? This is such a strong design that sticks out in my memory. The one thing I'm not a huge fan of is her little jacket. The way it tucks into her breastplate is awkward, and with the already short sleeve slit on the sides, it makes me wonder why it's there in the first place. As for her Fontaine from a novel-inspired skin, it's cute, but not nearly as strong as her original. If anything, I'd say it's almost too similar to her original design. What I've noticed most with skins so far is that the design team is trying to maintain the character silhouette. Character silhouette is if you were to block out in design, you would still have a good idea that it's that character based on distinct shapes and design elements. While I do believe a lot of these skins succeed in maintaining silhouette, they fail at being unique. Ayaka does look like she put on a more frilly dress and a fancier bow that day. It's still cute, of course, but I wouldn't have guessed this was meant to be Fontaine inspired. The brown boots also stick out like a sore thumb, and while it wouldn't be a perfect fix, making them the same brown as the hat could have helped. Again, it's still cute, but I think this design could have been so much more. From one Kamisato sibling to the next, now we have her brother. Do you remember the debates on whether he would be playable or not? Then when he was, there was another grand debate over whether he'd be a Hydro Polearm or Claymore. Surprise! It's a sword. There were a lot of chatter and hype for his design, and when it finally released, well, a lot of people were disappointed. I wasn't one of those, oddly enough. While it did take some time for me to warm up to the suit he was wearing, I liked the white and dark blue colors. He also is wearing some black and gold armor to match his sister. I know many were wanting him to have long hair, but I actually prefer him with the shorter hair, and hey, another character that doesn't have thigh-high boots. I like that. For me, my disappointment with Ayato comes more from a lore standpoint. He should have had a bigger hand in Inazuma's story, but because of his release date being so late and after the main Archon quest, it felt like the team had to shoehorn excuses for why such an important figure wasn't around. Design-wise though, his colors work, his outfit is broken up nicely, and I think it suits him. There's no denying it, they did a fantastic job designing the fashion designer character of this game. Her outfit has very nice layering that's nice to look at, her golden brown colors complement each other so well that the asymmetrical parts aren't bothersome, and her hair is over the top, but it makes sense for her character. The shoes, while cool looking, also look like a nightmare to walk in, but if she can rock them, then by all means, more power to her. The one thing I'm iffy about in this design is the color choice for her undertop. The darker grays fading into white sticks out in an awkward way. I'm not sure why they didn't use gold, red, or brown again, as there's enough variety in that color combo to make it fit in. Either way though, Chiori has such a good design, and it was so nice to see her fit into the Inazuman style while also adding her own unique flair, which further complements her lore. No. Goro, why are you fighting in a war with your stomach exposed? He is the general of Watatsumi Island, and I don't get that at all from his design. I do wish he was more covered up as a general in wartime, because one wrong hit and down he goes. Aside from that though, the colors do work well together. The teal's a nice accent color that complements the dusty gray. The dark brown is distributed well enough throughout the design that it doesn't feel unbalanced. I do think that the dark red ropes get lost against the dark brown. By changing these ropes to the same teal color, or if they made the ropes a little lighter shade of red, they wouldn't get as lost. I think design-wise, it's a solid design, but when you consider just how big the Vision Hunt degree was, the Vision Hunt degree was in Inazuma, the role he played in it, the design just completely falls apart. The model that deserved proper muscles. This design is really awesome. The Oni aspects come across so clearly, and the colors work together really well. He has a lot of darker colors in his outfit, but to contrast this, he has yellow on the inner part of his coat. That to me is what helps this design pop and make it readable. The spikes all around his wrists and boots are cool. Of course, his horns and belt help portray the Oni aspects. The red tattoos or body markings are a nice touch to give some depth to the design even when he's not wearing a shirt. I don't know if the purple and white rope was necessary for this design, but by having it wrap around his shoulders and show up in the front makes it work out. I do hope we get to see Ito in some more lore-heavy moments and not just for comic relief in the future. Is that Canadian ether? Is that 5-star sucrose? Kazuha's release was very interesting because he was not only just our first official look into Inazuma, but he actually came out before Inazuma released. He was the bridge between our current Genshin as we knew it and what was to come in 1.6 through Beto's crew. Seeing as he was our first look into Inazuma, he's special in a way, and this design is interesting. He has a maple motif, which is clear among numerous parts of his design. I like how his sleeves and pants reflect it, but not in an obnoxious way. He has one sleeves tied down, so his white undershirt shows. I do find the white undershirt somewhat distracting, but for the sake of layering, I think it serves its purpose. I like how they use red throughout the design for his accent color, and the red streak in his hair fits. Also, the bandages on his hand at first I thought were weird, but after hearing about his friend and the masterless vision, it's a design element that makes sense. Part of me wonders if his hand will remain bandaged forever, or if he will eventually remove it to reveal burn scars underneath. The Nekomata wasn't part of the original Inazuma cast as she joined after the release of Dendro, and despite pulling over 140 times on the banner she was featured in, I never got her until her freebie in 4.8. Thanks, Gacha! Kirara is one of the designs in-game that's made by Chiori, and it's a really cute design. I do appreciate the level of symmetry her design has, as a lot of characters in the game go for an asymmetrical approach. Her color scheme complements each other really well too. What I love is that her feet are actual cat paws, but then I look towards her head and find that she has human ears and a big bow? You mean to tell me they designed her a cat-looking bow, but she doesn't have cat ears? It's a little weird considering she's a Nekomata yokai, but hey, the rest of her design is so good. Plus, we get an adorable box cat version to reflect on her duties essentially as an Amazon deliverer of Genshin. She, alongside Nilo, was among the most recent of the cast to get a skin, and this skin is pretty good too. Many people were saying how it reminded them of Puss in Boots, and yeah, they're right. I'm not sure if she needed the belts on the one leg, and the bodysuit is really riding up her butt, but overall the design fits her color scheme. I like how with most skins, they go back and find a way to floof up the hair to make it a little more interesting, and of course, the hat with the ears is really nice, even though if my brain knows, her human ears are lurking right underneath. Kokomi is the divine priestess of Watatsumi Island, not general. I accidentally got it backwards in a previous video of mine, my bad. But she also oversees the island as its leader. I have a love-hate opinion on her design. I love the colors and how they utilize different ombre techniques to combine them all together. I love her overall jellyfish mermaid theme, and I think her backside is very intricate and pretty to look at. As someone who loves pink-haired characters, Kokomi's design is one that I'm drawn towards. Plus, if I may add, her beta design and name was Mimi, who was also a design that I really liked. Part of me wished we could get her beta design as an alternate outfit, or at least have the choice to have Mimi's hairstyle because it was just so adorable. Where I really dislike Kokomi's design is in the context of Inazuma's present Vision Hunt decree. While she isn't the general and not the one fighting on the front lines as much, I don't know why she doesn't have some armor on her for some levels of protection. Yes, she's a healer, she can tend to wounds, but as a strategist who has numerous books planned for every scenario, it leads me to think she'd be prepared for anything. Why would she let herself, Goro, or any of her troops show openings? This doesn't reflect in her design, and I can tell the design team was going for more of the Shrine Maiden look rather than considering the context in which her character was placed in. It's not the end of the world, as Kokomi's design is really nice, but knowing the added context irks me a bit. War is serious and dangerous, and they've told us in the narrative how good she is at planning for things. It just seems silly to me that her design doesn't reflect at least some of this with the little shoulder armor or knee pads. On the opposing side of the Vision Hunt decree, Kujo Sara is the leader of the Tenryou Commission and listens to the Raiden Shogun, and I think her design is underrated. This outfit is layered nicely with the black undergarments, then you have the purple to white ombre on the front with varying accessories to wrap it all up. As a Tengu, she has wings that come out of her back on varying skills, and of course the red mask. To complement the bright red mask, she has the same color shoes, which are also really unique. If I had to pick one thing about the design that's a little distracting, it would be the bright yellow bow on her waist. I find my eyes getting drawn back to it when trying to see what else Kujo's design has to offer. But much like my other war participating Inazuma critiques, I would like to see some more armor. Doesn't need to be anything crazy, just a little something. Shinobu was released after the main story quest for Inazuma, and she's interesting. I love the colors and how the design is broken up. The black, dark purple, and gold works well together. I do really like her hairstyle, although the bright green does feel a bit strange. It does a good job contrasting the design though, and I like how there are dark purple ropes tying her hair up. The body markings on her is a nice touch and helps tie her to Ito, who she works for, and gives her character a bit more depth. Another big part of her design is the mask, but to be honest, I'm not sure if I like it all that much. If it had maybe a dark purple highlight in it, perhaps it would blend better with the rest of her outfit. Shinobu is pretty interesting because she used to be a shrine maiden, but didn't like that line of work. I like how there isn't anything, at least that I could see, calling back to her Shrine Maiden duties. She's fully become what she wants to be, and that's great for her character. Here it is, the Archon of Inazuma, the Raiden Shogun. Before I touch on her character design, I feel it's important to emphasize just how well done her initial release was. The way they sprinkled in little lore bits throughout version 1.0 about her tyrannical reign, the 2.0 trailer, which I think is still one of the most hyped up trailers when it first launched, and her big entrance, it was executed flawlessly. Our first Archon who wasn't exactly on our side and in fact opposed us in the main story. The one who was causing the nation great pain and strife. Many were excited for her release, and when her design dropped, the hype only skyrocketed. The Booba sword probably helped with that. Naturally, I was pretty excited too, but when I got to take a really close look at her design, I was torn. There are some things I love about Raiden Shogun's design and things that I actually really hate about it. Let's start with what I love. I love her hair. The dark purple fading into a lighter purple with a long braid down the back is so pretty. Not just that, but she has these lighter strands woven in throughout, which adds some extra dimension. Plus, we see later on her creation has the same lighter strands in his hair, connecting them together. So cool. I love her sleeves and the design on them, and I also love her sash in the middle. Now, the part that I dislike is just how short her kimono is. You can see her underwear or super short shorts very clearly. I actually don't mind her chest area being open because it makes sense for her skills. She has to draw her Booba's sword and needs fabric to not be in the way of that. I don't know if the thigh highs were necessary for her either. If they made her kimono longer, then some fancy sandals would have been just fine. I like the dark purple color they went for those thigh highs, but I just wonder what it could have been. Overall, I do love the color scheme for the Raiden Shogun, and I can tell that she's supposed to represent Inazuma with a quick glance. There's a lot to like about her design, but I think the fan service for her was a bit forced and it shows. Sleepy Sayu has a fantastic design. Let me tell you why. Although I feel like her character is very forgettable with her lack of emphasis in the story, her design is so good. You can easily tell she's meant to represent a tanuki, and the color distribution is done so well too. The tan is the main color of the body complemented by black, but the shoes are also black to balance it out. Using orange as the accent color, Sayu's design is broken up, and by having the leaf be the odd color out, it draws your eyes to it, but not in a distracting way. If anything, it adds a layer of curiosity. I'm not sure if the asymmetrical arm designs were necessary here for Sayu, but overall this is such a strong design, and the little ninja star clues us into her profession. Heizo was introduced far after the conclusion of the main story quest, and is a detective. I really love Heizo's character and wish he had more official interests, but I have to admit his design doesn't tell us anything about his detective role. I remember when his design was first revealed, there were a lot of people expressing their dislike for it, some going as far as to call him an NPC. I don't think his design is that bad, but I do think it's on the blander side compared to the rest of the Inazuma cast. It seems they went with a white, dark brown, and orange for the main color palette. The wine red hair being chopped up in a bunch of layers and tied up in the back is interesting to look at, but it also causes me to raise my eyebrow. I still don't know if that one black strand is hair or a piece of fabric. It looks like a headband. Color-wise, his design is not very balanced, and the middle is a bit chaotic. I want to reiterate that I don't think his design is bad, but I feel like Heizo's character theme was lacking a clear direction. Regardless, he's still super fun to play, and I hope I can get him at C6 one day. Remember when Toma was called Inazuman Child, and then he turned out to have the most wholesome personality? Good times. I love that Toma's design has flames on both the back and the front of the tail ends of his coat. I like that he has some armor pieces, not only because of the seriousness of Inazuma's plot, but because his kit mainly revolves around shielding. I do like his jacket for the most part, though I don't know if making one sleeve black was necessary. Keeping it fully red would have been better since we already have black undershirt to break up the shapes. I also don't think he needed one glove and one long armor piece for the arms. If the design team decided on just one of these and had it on both arms, I think the symmetry would have looked better for Toma. Overall, this is a really solid design, and I like the unique headband. What I think would elevate this design to the next level is if he had a windmill aster on him somewhere to symbolize his favorite flower from his homeland, Mondstadt. He is loyal to the Kamisato clan and Inazuma, but he does get homesick, so having something like a windmill aster keychain or maybe a piece of fabric with that flower design on it could be a nice little piece of home for him. This is the second character from Genshin that I have cosplayed for. It's a pink-haired character. Are we surprised? The white, red, and pink color palette is done so well for Yaemiko, and the layers of clothing are separated in a way that's very clear to see. You can tell that she has some link to the Shrine Maidens by looking at her design, and I like the golden hair piece along with her ears being folded downwards. As much as I like this design and think it's gorgeous, I do acknowledge the fact that she is pretty sexualized, especially for a Shrine Maiden. Even in the Genshin universe alone, you can take a look at the other Shrine Maiden NPCs and then take a look at Yaemiko. Some have expressed their discomfort in that, and I completely understand where they are coming from. Hey guys, it's 5-star Amber! The community really had a problem with labeling units as 5-star versions of existing 4 stars back then. Yoimiya is fun, cheerful, and playful, and luckily for us, this shows in her vibrant design. The usage of warm color palette is perfect for our firework maker. One thing that I don't like is just how much bandages are on her design and where they are placed. I think it's expected that by playing with fire, you're going to get burned and need bandages. I could see it on the chest, but on the thigh right up her butt. I also think her legs would look so much cooler if she had the leg guard on both of them, not just the one. I do love the little goldfish sash on her waist, the big pretzel rope on her back, and all the ornaments in her hair. Overall, Yoimiya is such a fun design, and I think it suits her really well. I wouldn't be able to tell she's a firework maker from this design alone, but after discovering it in the story, I'm able to appreciate her design just a little bit more. I find that I like a lot of designs when I look at just the design itself, but once I consider the context, I struggle to appreciate it fully for the Inazuma cast. It feels like Inazuma's Vision Hunt decree was not being taken seriously by any of the characters that partook in it with how they are dressed. War is scary, dangerous, and life-threatening. Part of me can't shake the feeling that practicality was set aside for the sake of fan service with this region. That doesn't stop me from enjoying these designs, but it makes me wonder how much cooler they could have been if they fit into the world just a bit better. Alhaitham's design is pretty cool. There is a lot of black in this design, but with the green color it helps break it up nicely for the most part. The gold trim further assists with this, and the dusty gold on the inner coat helps with contrast. I like the pattern on his chest, the trim of his boots, and the gem on his chest. And headphones. I think the see-through green piece of fabric on his back is a nice touch as well, although the game model I think is more opaque. Overall, his design is pretty solid, and I will never buy the fact that he's just a feeble scholar. Yeah, right, Alhaitham. I love Candace. The dark blue, white, and gold color palette is so pretty on her. The heterochromia eyes and the lore reason behind it is so good. I especially love her headpiece and the necklace. I'm not sure if she needed the sleeve on the one arm, but I like that she has various moon symbols on her design. One on the back of her head and one on her hip. I also believe her necklace is meant to be an Ankh, which is a symbol or a key of the Nile/life. I love that detail. I like that she uses a shield for combat, as it gives her an unique added flair. This is another character I hope gets more spotlight in the story, or at least I hope we go back to Aru Village so we can learn more about Candace. Kale is a special character for a few reasons, one of the biggest being that her debut is in the webcomic. Yep, Genshin had a webcomic that was updated in the beginning that featured the Knights of Favonius along with Kale, Sino, and Dottore. I don't think it's been updated in a really long time though, which is a real shame. To see Kale go from a character wrapped in bandages and ready to give up on life to becoming such a beautiful character has been such a journey. I love her black dress and sleeves along with the gold trim. I do wish her leggings were the same length. I don't think they needed to be asymmetrical. What I really like about her design is her hoodie and the long orange scarf that droops down the back. The orange is a good contrast to the black colors. The purple gems on her chest and earring is a nice contrast as well. If you haven't looked into the webcomic and you like Kale's character in game, I'd highly recommend checking it out to get insight on her origins. The game unfortunately glosses over her past from the webcomic, and with the context of that webcomic, a lot of her relationships with the Mondstadt characters makes a lot more sense. There's especially a heartbreaking scene between her and Kaya that adds a level of complexity to everything. Design-wise though, she's truly grown up and is pretty solid overall. I do think it would be nice if she had a quill like Amber since she's a forest trainee, but it's still pretty good. We knew about Sino's existence from the beginning thanks to the Teyvat trailer, and many were hyped for his release for years. I love that they took inspiration from Anubis for his design, which is reflected in his helmet. The black, dark purple, and gold works well. I do think the orange they chose for the accent color and the bluish purple is a little odd. The orange I can see working as it's in his headdress as well, but the bluish purple attached to his belt and hanging in front stands out like a bit of a sore thumb. However, we do see that same color in his helmet, so it's not completely out of place. Personally, I just find it distracting. The way that his helmet glows and the gauntlets get covered during his skill is pretty cool too, and I think it's a nice detail that his helmet grows over his face during this phase. Sino has a solid design, and I should put him on my team more often. Oh Dia, I am so sorry for what they did to you regarding your kit. Design-wise though, you are gorgeous. The black and red color palette is wonderful, and the red piece of fabric over her chest doesn't feel out of place thanks to the red fabric behind her. Her boots are pretty cool though. As an Eremite, I'm not sure if heels are the best choice for her character. I also don't know if all those belts serve much of a purpose on her legs other than to be uncomfortable. The design could have just been as strong without those. I love her hair, and I was fooled into thinking they were cat ears at first. What is it with Genshin designing women with fake cat ears? This is one of those designs where the asymmetry in her arms makes sense because of that big gauntlet she uses to punch the crap out of people with. I love the added detail to that arm. Dia's design is impeccable, and I am so sad that she's not as strong of a unit in the game. Here we go, Dori. This is a character that, as much as it sucks to say, I think if you removed her from the game, not much would change. The protagonist would still find another way to get a hold of the canned knowledge, and the main story would progress without her. Kaveh might be in a bit of trouble regarding his magnum opus of a palace, though. Usually, I like pink-haired characters, you get the drill by now, but Dori, I am just puzzled. Her glasses, I think, are the one thing I like about her. She has color balance with the black purples and whites, but it's in odd places, with so much purple being in the pants only to be balanced by the hat that's covered by her hat's feather piece. The black shirt is balanced by the small strip in her shoes, and the black on the back of her hat, which we don't really see. The white is evenly distributed along with the darker pink, which is good. I just can't shake off this feeling that this character was just created for gacha's sake, or to fill up the slots needed for the Sumeru roster. Farazan was released after the Sumeru Archon quest, and I found it funny that some people on the internet were comparing her very specifically to a lamp they would find in her grandma's house. Then we found out that she is in fact older at heart because she was trapped inside a puzzle for what, at least 100 years? I found that very amusing. Others said that she was a budget Miku of Genshin. Anywho, she has some interesting elements going on here. The top of her design is pretty straightforward with her twin tails and white top of her dress. The further you go down, the crazier it gets. I don't dislike the design, but I can't deny that the dress is quite chaotic at the bottom. I didn't even realize some of the holes were cut out until I looked closer. Huzzah! He finally got a banner after a whole year. He also didn't release until after the main story of Sumeru, but he did get a cameo at the very end arguing with none other than his roommate. The amounts of art I've seen of those two. Kaveh's got a good design going on for him. His white shirt is balanced by the white shoes, his black pants is balanced by the beginning of his black to red cape/scarf. The sash on his waist has dark green elements fading into white, and while I thought the green was a little out of place at first, I think the feather on his head helps tie it together a little bit. Without the briefcase, I wouldn't get that he's an architect, but with the briefcase, buddy, I'd be able to get a close to the ballpark in terms of his occupation. I might guess a businessman first relating to the academia, but the feather clues me in on something a bit more artsy. Overall, it's a good design, and hopefully he won't go back to 4-star banner jail. I'm not a fan of Layla's character, but I do really like her design. The dark blue to lighter blue hair that's twirled is so pretty, and the yellow eyes are a nice contrast. I like that she's wearing a hood, even if it's lopsided on half of her head. The black, dark blue, and gold and white work really well together together, though I do feel like the layers of clothing do get a little lost towards the center. I don't really have much else to say other than I like this design and I think it turned out really well. It's time for the Archon of Sumeru herself, Nahida. There was a lot of controversy surrounding her design reveal. I mean a lot, probably the most I've ever seen with an Archon released. At first, people were upset with the fact that she was a child model, and then upon realizing what Sumeru was inspired from, an influx of concern surrounding her skin complexion came in. While we did get a lore reason as for why Nahida is so small, that being whenever she uses large amounts of power, she continues to shrink, even alluding in her second story quest that she might become nothing more than a tree branch. The skin complexion is another issue entirely that Hoyoverse still struggles with to this day. I completely understand why people are upset with not just Nahida's character, but the majority of the Sumeru cast. You're taking inspiration from these rich and beautiful cultures, but why are you leaving aspects of the people from these cultures behind? As I'm writing this, there's major concerns surrounding that land and how it might be a repeat of Sumeru. I wanted to acknowledge this at some point because I know it's a major concern among a good handful of the player base, and I too would love to see more diversity in the game. As far as her design, Nahida's design consists of varying shades of green and white. Of course the gold trim is there too. I remember many were saying that she looked like Klee's sister upon further look into her outfit. I think the design itself is really cute, but considering the context of her being an Archon, I do think they could have made her represent Sumeru as a whole better. I think the white and green colors for her outfit are fine, but maybe change the dress to fit the culture better. I also think given the lore reason, it's fine for her to be small. To sum up my thoughts on Nahida in a nutshell, I'd love to see her represent Sumeru more in her design. She's got the dendro representation in nature, we're just missing that last aspect. There's a lot to like about Nila's design. The light blue, darker blue, and gold works well. How many times have you heard me say there's gold in a character's design by now? The horns on her head are a unique touch, and it correlates to the main quest as part of the costume for her dance performance. I love that they gave her bright red hair, as it looks really nice against the majority of hues of blue she has. What I think would elevate this design to the next level if there was a Padisara on her design somewhere. It could be a literal flower like on Lisa or Noelle's design, or the Padisara could be a design woven into her fabric. It's not only her favorite flower, but it's directly important to the lore of Sumeru's past, as the original Padisara no longer exists. I think that'd be a nice touch, and it would show a bit more of Nilo's personality. I mean, she went as far as to name her creation in the 4.8 summer event, Padisara. Speaking of, let's talk about her fairy skin for that very summer event. It's cute, and I like that they curled her hair, and oh! Is that a giant Padisara I see on her hip and some of her headdress there? Glad to know they went through with it on her skin design. Instead of just going for white and blue, they splashed in some purples, which looks nice, but it does feel very similar to her original outfit. The outfit is layered nicely, but I can't help but feel as if the two designs are just too reflective of each other. The purple Padisara, though, is an excellent choice, and I'm glad to see it. Sethos was added more recently into the game as a parallel for Sino. I really like his fluffy hair and the braids we can see throughout it. He has a good color palette that complements itself well enough. I also like that there's some splashes of dark purple in there. I honestly don't have too much to say about Sethos. He gave us some interesting lore for the desert, and his design is solid. I enjoy it, and hopefully now that he's released, we can see him interact with the established Sumeru cast more. I remember when his design was released, it was so chaotic that even art professors in colleges were using his design as an example of what not to do. The first time I saw his 3D model from the back, I thought he was wearing a helmet with ears. Tighnari shocked me in the main story quest as he actually became one of my favorite characters from Sumeru, but as far as his design goes, it's something. Despite the chaos, we can pick up the fact that he has something to do with nature thanks to his leaf-like cape and some flowers smacked on his shoulder. So, at least we have that. The rest of his outfit, though, just makes me ask a lot of questions. He wears a short-sleeved jacket. Okay, but why do you have an undershirt with one long sleeve and then no sleeve on the other side? His shoes look oddly modern for the fantasy setting, and though I do appreciate his gloves and pants being symmetrical, I do think the attempt to break up the colors with the white sash down the middle doesn't quite work. I want to say his main colors look like dark blue, green, and white, but then we have a bunch of other colors, well, everywhere. I'm glad he turned out to be the sassy botanist, but this design just... I hope he gets a skin soon. Last but not least for the Sumeru crew, we have Wanderer, a highly anticipated character that threw everyone for a loop when he was redesigned. Originally, he was Scaramouche with dark purple, red, and white color palette that reflected the element of Electro and his creator, the Raiden Shogun, more. He was instantly unique among the cast despite not being playable because of his hat and role in the story. I wonder if we'll ever get a follow-up to the whole sky being false lines. His original design was so bulletproof that many, including myself, were torn about the potential redesign when it was announced that he would become playable. Did it live up to expectations? Well, it depends on who you ask. I'll always have a soft spot for the Scaramouche design because of how good and cohesive it is. Remember when I said Kazuha was our first look into Inazuma? Well, if you were around for the 1.1 event, which I was not, then Scaramouche was your first look. Poor guy had to listen to Official Ramble even back then. Now we have the same character that goes by Wanderer and ditches the purple color entirely. Instead we have a teal, dark blue, and white color palette. Honestly, he keeps a lot of the same design elements from his Scaramouche design. The hat, the shorts, the sandals, and even the sleeves to an extent. What's significant about this change is that he's finally broken away from the mental burdens of his creator, the betrayals that he's experienced and the anger he's held on for all those years. His hair and the little mark on the back of his neck are the only things left that tie him to the Raiden Shogun. With everything that's happened in the Archon quest, I find this new color palette fitting for Wanderer. His overall shape and design language remain the same, but with the memories of himself erased from the world thanks to Irminsul, he's starting anew, but his overall personality remains intact. Just a little less murderous. I think his design changes reflect that. Sumeru is when the details in designs, even by Hoyoverse standards, start to get ridiculously complicated. Some characters have good designs but suffer from extra little details that don't need to be there. Less is really more in some cases, and at this point of development is where I begin to see detail being added for detail's sake, and unfortunately, as much as I love Nahida as a character, I struggle to see how she represents Sumeru. Before I get into her design, I love that she uses her camera instead of throwing around her catalyst. It's so cool. When her chain of attacks are done, she puts it right back on her hip too. Many at first called her French Yanfei, which their colors are similar, so I get the comparison, but Charlotte has a lot to offer. The dark red, black, and white colors are nice. The camera clues us in that she's some type of photographer. I wouldn't guess journalist right away, but it's still a big part of her profession, and we haven't really seen this highlighted on a character since the Mondstadt crew. I also really love that she has a monocle. It's a nice detail that makes her stand out. Overall, I think Charlotte is a solid design, and for our very first cryo catalyst in the game, it's cool that she uses a camera for her attacks. Chevreuse design is interesting to me. The first thing that sticks out is the hat on her head and her long purple hair. I like that the hair isn't split in half like many of the models. Just like Charlotte, she has the same color palette of red, black, and white, but it's not distributed as nicely. The red and black colors are balanced well, but I think the big white boots are a bit awkward. I also don't know why she has headphones. Maybe it's because rifles are loud? I do think her eye patch is cool, but I'm not sure if we got an explanation in the game as to why she has it. If anyone knows why, let me know in the comments. I don't think her design is bad by any means, but it doesn't tell me she's a captain, nor does it really stick out. I'll admit, I wasn't a huge fan of Chlorian's design at first, but I've warmed up to it. I love the color scheme for the most part. The black, gold, and dark purple complement each other well. The one thing that bothers me about this design is the white. I know it's likely meant to draw eyes towards her chest and the buttons struggling for life, but it just looks out of place. I do see her cuffs and boots are also white for some color balance, but it just doesn't work for me. Aside from that though, the rest of her design I love a lot. The messier hair with the cool hat, the way her outfit is shaped, it's cool. Not to mention she has such a fun burst animation. I can see why many were saying that her burst animation is the new best one in the game, visually speaking. The newest addition to the cast while writing this, Emily. Her reception has been not the best. I have mixed feelings about her design myself. I enjoy the dark green and black colors contrasted by the blonde hair, but I don't like the haircut. The splashes of white help break up the outfit so it's a bit more readable. I do like her hat and how intricate it is, and I believe the shape language is meant to resemble that of certain flowers. The way her sleeves bow out and the bottom of her dress is shaped clues me into this somewhat. Unfortunately, much like a lot of Genshin characters, I wouldn't be able to look at this design and pick up the fact that she's a perfumer. I love how Fremene's idle animation with his diving helmet lasts for a really long time. Me too, buddy. Me too. His design is interesting with the dark color palette that's complemented with gold and white. I do get a little steampunk vibe from Femine thanks to the gadget on his back, and of course, whenever his pair is around, I'm not sure if I would be able to guess that he's a diver until he puts on that helmet. Then I would know immediately what his profession is. I think the freckles are a nice touch, and overall his design just comes together in such a cohesive way. It's fitting that we got a diver for the region that is Fontaine. It's time to discuss none other than the greatest actress herself, Farina. Farina has two forms to represent Usia and Numia. One gives her shorter hair and a darker blue color palette, while the other gives her longer hair and some white splashed into her design. For the sake of brevity, I'm going to label the two long hair and short hair versions. I'll start with the long hair version. Long hair Farina is the one we're first introduced to as the Archon of Fontaine. I find my personal bias likes this design better, but for that reason alone, personal bias. I think the white splashes of color adds an extra interesting layer on both the shorts and the ruffles on the back. Short hair Farina though is just as good of a design. Though the colors are darker, this is the version of Farina that no longer has to put on an act. The version of Farina that is free. Despite losing the white color contrast, this design holds up, and the lore meaning behind it makes me love this version of Farina too. Also, a nice subtle detail is that in long hair Farina, she doesn't have a vision. Short hair Farina does have a vision, further emphasizing on the lore. Though I think once you get her as a playable character, she's gonna have a vision on both versions, as you will be swapping between them in combat. I think if any character is going to have two designs in one, it's fitting that it's Farina. One of the first characters of Fontaine introduced to us alongside her brother. Lynette and Linny were revealed to us in the Tevat trailer, so we knew about them for a long time. Remember when we speculated that they would be a 2-in-1 character? While that didn't turn out to be true, Lynette's design turned out to be pretty cute. Black, teal, and white come together to make for a sweet design, and I love the huge bow. And look, a real cat girl. I definitely get some type of magic vibes from this design, and I love that she matches her brother in subtle ways. Speaking of her brother, let's talk about him. The twin of Lynette, and instead of donning teal, he has this pinkish red. They both have hats, though he wears his hat all the time, and they both have their cat symbol tying them together. I like how they both have white sleeves and the same tights accompanied with black shoes. They're twins, and while they have similar clothes, Chiori, yes, remember her? She made both of their outfits in the game. Chiori found a way to make them complement each other as twins while making both Lynette and Linny shine on their own. I'd say Linny gives me more of the magician vibes than Lynette, but both of their designs are too good and were a great way to introduce us to Fontaine. I'm bringing up Chiori again because this is the last character she made an outfit for. Navia has a fantastic design, and there's a good reason why many were drawn to her when she was revealed in the big Fontaine trailer with all the other characters. The long blonde hair, the black, the white, the gold color palette, the way her outfit is layered and balanced, it's done so very well. Not to mention her gunbrella. While not present in her design, it stood out for her kit. I'll admit, I'm getting tired of the thigh-high boot heels at this point, but they do look pretty good on Navia. The bottom part of her dress is quite intricate, and while it runs the risk of being chaotic, the usage of colors and layering was done so well that it looks cohesive and purposeful. But I have a confession. I don't really like Navia's character. But as a design, this is probably one of the better ones we've seen, and it probably ranks as one of my favorite.
Turn to the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale. The judgment of the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale.
The way I did not care for his design at first, but this guy ended up, like Navia, being one of my favorites from the entire Fontaine cast. There's a lot of blues being used, which runs the risk of many design elements getting lost, but thankfully there's enough variation and color gradients to break everything up. I love the fact that Nouvellette has two balanced scales on the edge of his coat folds. Great touch. His hairstyle is also one of the more unique ones I've seen. Just in general, and two darker pieces of hair coming out from the top are cool. One thing that did catch me off guard for so long, I thought he was wearing ankle boots like Zhongli and Ayato. A few months of playing with him, I found out he's wearing super tall, thigh-high boots? What? I love that his weapon is a cane, and Nouvellette took me by great surprise in the story and by becoming such a huge meme in the community. I love this dude. Her design already sparked much interest when she was first revealed. She had the features of a Melusine but a human face? What was going on here? Thankfully, we got the answer to that in her story quest, and it was actually a pretty sad one. Since Siegfried's story is still somewhat new as of the time I'm writing this, I won't say what it is. Jumping into her design, she has bright pinks, blues, and of course white color palette. There is a little bit of dark blue for contrast, which doesn't come off as strange and works here for the shorts and shoes. Siegfried is one of those characters that, thanks to her hat, I know she's a nurse, or at least a healer character of some kind. I like the bows and how they alternate between pink and blue. I like the wings on her back and that they aren't just for decoration. In her animations, they do flutter as she throws big pills at people. The heart bag is a cute touch and plays into health as well. I think her design effectively tells us what she does and evokes curiosity. Remember when people thought he was blind at first thanks to the Fontaine trailer? Then people thought he was a wolf thanks to the hair? We got baited again! Even so, he's still pretty cool. His design has a lot of black colors which are balanced by the dark red and gray. I do think some details get a little lost, but you know what? He doesn't use any gold trim. Finally, a character that doesn't use any gold to break up their design. That alone makes him instantly unique among the entire Genshin cast. Well, okay, he has a little on his gauntlets, but come on. There are some details that I'm not sure I honestly needed, but like the belt one on one of the pant legs where his thigh-high boot is, or the gloves being asymmetrical. However, his coat is super freaking cool, and it's a breath of fresh air to see silver and not gold for accent colors. I was worried that Fontaine's character designs would overlap with Mondstadt and that they would be indistinguishable from each other. I'm pleasantly surprised to say that's not the case. I do think the issue of over-detailed characters continues to be an issue with Fontaine's cast, but the characters feel like they belong in Fontaine. With a character like Siegween, I hope the team isn't afraid to do more like her as it brings a more unique variety to the cast. We're not done yet, though. There's still a few remaining characters that I believe are worth discussing. We can't forget our main characters, and if I'm being honest, I'm not thrilled about Ether or Lumine's design. They're not bad, but they're okay at best for me. I do like how they gave the male traveler the longer hair and the female one the shorter hair. It's a fun idea. I do prefer Ether's color palette over Lumine's, as I think the brown helps make the gold and white pop better. Like in Ganyu's entry, I would have liked to see something tie his hair in the back when the braid starts. Again, the twins' designs aren't bad, but they just aren't for me. I forgot about her. It really is a shame how her entry into Genshin was handled. For a collaboration, Aloy's existence could have been a sign of great things to come. Instead, well, she's the only character that can't obtain constellations, and she doesn't appear in any story-related event. No main story, no side quests, not even limited events. You either mysteriously got her in the mail one day or didn't. Design-wise, she isn't bad. The light brown accompanied by the light blues works. I'm not a fan of her hairstyle, but that's a personal preference. Despite being from another game and another world, as Genshin labels her, she actually looks ready to traverse the terrain. I get hunter vibes from her. While I think Aloy's design is fine, it's unfortunately very forgettable compared to the vibrant design surrounding her, and it doesn't help that Aloy got completely shunned with no proper appearances to give the player base that's not familiar with Horizon Zero Dawn a chance to interact with her. Her appearance in the game has been hyped ever since her reveal in the Fatui trailer. Arlecchino's white-black hair and X-crossed eyes were the striking features that got my attention at first, but now that we have her full design, there's a lot more to enjoy about her. I think she's the second female character wearing full pants and the only one aside from Jean. And look, she uses silver accents for the majority of her outfit instead of gold. Hey, did they sneak those in the shoes? I think if instead of gold accents they used silver for the shoes, this would have been the perfect design. The way it's layered, the color combos and distribution, the fact that her arms aren't gloves but it's her skin that's turned pitch black due to a curse. It's just so good. Not to mention she has a modifier on her signature weapon that unlocks a scythe design instead of just the usual polearm, which is a nice way to make her even more unique than she already is. I love this design, and I hope we get to see more character like this, all with their own unique flair, of course. Introduced to us in the Liyue Archon quest, we have Child. I'm going to rip the band-aid off here and tell you that I do not like him as a character. He drives me nuts. Separating my personal thoughts and just looking at his design, though, it's pretty solid. Gray, black, and red work well with some splashes of white. I'm not sure why he has a little skin showing above his vision, seems like an odd choice. The white across his chest does come off as odd as well at first, but when you look at his back you can see where it's meant to be balanced. I also like the mask on his head. Overall, it's a solid design, and I have a feeling he's going to continue to be an integral part of the plot no matter how much I wanted to leave him in the Fontaine prison. This is the one non-playable character that I feel necessary to include. Dainsleif is the one character that we all cheer for whenever he gets his quest, and I'm right there alongside you all. Most of his quests are complete bangers, and his design is a banger too. The mostly black color palette with the dark blue accents is super nice, and I like the piece that's covering the side of his face. I wonder if there's something that he's hiding underneath it. Unlike the shiny gold accents we see on almost every character, he has this dusty and almost rustic gold for clothing trim, almost to allude to the fact that he's been around for a very long time. I do think some of the outfit gets lost near the pants and shoes. If there was a small black gradient on the shoes to help break the shapes up, or that rusty gold trim on it, that could also help. The contrast of darker blues of his cape is also really nice against all the black clothing he wears. I cannot wait for him to one day be playable, and one of the reasons why I continue forward with this game is to finally get the conclusion of the Conrian storyline. Last, but certainly not least, we have the other twin, Lumine. I personally think Lumine is the weaker of the two twins. I do like how she has the feather earring to match her brother's. I also like that she has the special flowers in her hair that are becoming quite lore relevant. However, as someone who is supposed to be fighting and traveling constantly, the dress does not look convenient or comfortable one bit. I get that there's a look cool rule, but this does not look practical whatsoever. It's a pretty dress, but not one I'd expect a seasoned fighter to wear. Ether, despite the midriff, looks like he can fight and run around in that outfit. Lumine, not so much. After looking over 80 plus playable Genshin characters, I am beat. But I want to address a few last thoughts. There are 3 big design elements that I noticed Hoyoverse loves, that being high levels of detail, golden trim / accents, and asymmetry. I'm sure there are a lot more design elements that could make it onto this list, but narrowing it down, these were the main 3 commonalities I saw on most of the characters. This can be both a good and bad thing. It can be good if Hoyoverse was wanting to establish a design principle for their cast. Now whenever I see a character design that has those 3 elements, my brain may be more likely to wonder if it's a Hoyoverse character. However, this can be a bad thing, because if this is a design principle for them and their brand, they'll limit themselves creatively, and their designs won't be able to be unique or special as they could be. And I honestly think they've run into that with their other games. My biggest gripe has to be just how often gold was used in these Genshin characters' designs. I think every single one had it. Even Ryozli, Arlecchino, and Dainsleif that had the least amount of gold still got it snuck into their design somewhere. That being said, I did go over a ton of designs, so if my eyes missed a design or skin that did not have gold on it, please let me know in the comments. I am very tired. That concludes the biggest video I have made on my channel thus far. I truly hope you enjoyed it, and if you made it to the end, thank you. Seriously, thank you. It took a long time to make, and I appreciate you listening all the way through. If you like this type of content, VTubing stuff, or art in general, then please consider subscribing, as that is what I do. Announcement time! I now have YouTube memberships available should you want to support the channel. No pressure, you don't have to do it, but if you want to, they are available now. Also, the little slime buddies that you saw in the corner of my screen throughout the video are available for free to download if you would like to play with them yourself. Okay, bye!